Hello everyone, this is Showtime 112. When the Arab-Israeli War of 1973 broke out, 16 Pakistani combat pilots volunteered to join the fight on behalf of Egypt and Syria. The Pakistani government approved their request, but insisted that their involvement remain officially unacknowledged. The pilots first flew to Iraq and then traveled to Syria by road. Once there, they were split into two groups. Half were sent to Egypt, while the other half stayed in Syria, where they joined No. 67A Squadron. However, Egypt agreed to a ceasefire with Israel before those pilots could engage in combat, so they remained in Egypt as instructors. The situation in Syria was different. With no ceasefire reached, Syria continued its conflict with Israel, albeit at a lower intensity. This wasn't the first time Pakistani pilots had flown combat missions for Arab air forces. In 1967, Saiful Azam achieved multiple aerial victories while flying Hawker Hunters for Jordanian and Iraqi air forces. His story was covered in a two-part video on this channel. In 1973, the Pakistani pilots assigned to Syria were tasked with flying MiG-21 F-13 fighter jets. This early version of the iconic Soviet aircraft lacked search radar and relied solely on a radar-ranging gun sight. It carried a single 30mm cannon with just 60 rounds of ammunition and could be armed with two K-13 air-to-air missiles, comparable to the early AIM-9 Sidewinders. Adjusting to this unfamiliar aircraft was challenging for the Pakistani pilots, especially as its cockpit labels were in Russian. Adding to their difficulties were flight communications and mission briefings conducted in Arabic. Despite these hurdles, they quickly adapted and began flying air defense alert missions from Dumair Air Base near Damascus. After months of sporadic activity, hostilities seemed to subside, leading the Pakistani pilots to increase their regular training sorties. But on April 26, 1974, at around 3:30 p.m., sirens blared, signaling an imminent threat. All 8 Pakistani pilots scrambled to their MiG-21s and took off. They patrolled westward towards Sidon in Lebanon before turning back towards Damascus at an altitude of 20,000 feet. Flight Lieutenant Abdus Sattar Alvi, call sign Shahbaz 8, was flying at the rear of the formation. The MiG-21 F-13 was notorious for its short range, a limitation that meant combat missions rarely lasted more than 30 minutes. As the formation neared low fuel levels, ground control reported Israeli aircraft in the area. No fewer than 56 enemy planes were mentioned over the radio, according to Sattar Alvi's recollections. Despite this daunting number and their fuel constraints, squadron leader Arif Manzoor led his formation toward the enemy. At this point, Israeli forces stationed at Mount Hermon activated jamming equipment, cutting off all radio communication. Shortly after, 2 Israeli F-4E Phantoms streaked past the MiGs in an almost head-on pass. As the formation attempted to regroup after a sharp turn, Sattar Alvi spotted 2 Mirage 3 fighters climbing toward them from below. Unable to communicate his sighting due to the jamming, Alvi made a split-second decision. He peeled away from his formation and turned directly into the Mirages. The lead Mirage overshot Alvi's MiG during this maneuver, leaving him face-to-face with the second Mirage. Sattar Alvi reversed his turn and lost most of his speed in the process. According to him, the Israeli pilot made a critical mistake. He entered a low-speed fight with the MiG. Both aircraft had delta-wing designs, notorious for losing energy quickly during hard maneuvers, but Alvi believed his MiG held an edge in low-speed combat. The dogfight lasted less than 30 seconds before the Mirage pilot attempted to disengage. likely expecting support from his leader. But this gave Alvey just enough time to lock onto him with one of his K-13 missiles. He fired, and after what felt like an eternity compressed into a single second, the missile launched and struck its target directly. The Mirage exploded and its pilot ejected. Sattar Alvey was happy to see the lead Mirage disengage, as his fuel level was getting critical. This is how Sattar Alvey recounts the combat, but can his story be corroborated by Israeli records? Unsurprisingly, no Israeli sources confirmed the loss of a Mirage on this date, or attribute it to any cause such as surface-to-air missiles. Shlomo Aloni's book, Israeli Mirage 3 and Nesher Aces, lists only one Mirage combat loss in 1974, on 6th of May, caused by a Syrian SAM. Similarly, Arab MiG-19 and MiG-21 units in combat by Cooper and Nicole does not mention this incident. A more recent work by Cooper, Nicole, and other authors, Arab MiGs, on the other hand, mentions the combat briefly. Most accounts of this event come from Pakistani sources, leaving its acceptance dependent on individual beliefs and interpretations. Some of you will leave your comments and opinions, and that's welcome, but please, keep it polite. According to Pakistani accounts, the downed Mirage's pilot was Captain Lutz, a name reportedly provided by an unnamed American source, and Lutz allegedly died from injuries after being captured by Syrian forces. However, there is no record of Captain Lutz in Israeli casualty lists from that period. A flight suit bearing his name in Latin script is displayed at Pakistan Air Force Museum in Karachi as evidence of this claim. For his actions on April 26, 1974, Sattar Alvey received high decorations from both Syria and Pakistan. He retired as an Air Commodore in 1998 after a distinguished career. His achievement remains one of many contested aerial victories from the Arab-Israeli wars, a testament to both skill and controversy. Thank you for watching Showtime 112.